Fox News national correspondent Griff Jenkins is down at the border in Eagle Pass with Texas Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. Hi, Griff.
Hey, that's right. And there have been more than 10,000 apprehensions just in the Del Rio sector since I have been here since the new fiscal year began on October 1st. Congressman, your thoughts. Why are you here today?
This is the eye of the storm. You know, Eagle Pass has been nonstop chaos from day one. I did a ride-along with the Eagle Pass Police Department, and what we were seeing is stash house after stash house right across the border. They're seeing an increase in the number of fentanyl-related calls. This is happening all over my district, but Eagle Pass is at the center of it.
Congressman, yesterday, Governor Abbott was really touting Operation Lone Star, some 311,000 apprehensions just by Texas DPS and 337 million lethal doses of fentanyl. As we head into a fiscal new year, are we better off or is it getting worse?
I've seen it getting worse. I mean, it is literally all hands on deck, from local PD to the sheriffs, the county sheriffs to the state. But this is a federal problem. You know, Joe Biden has caused this problem. We have Kamala Harris, who's in Texas later on today for a fundraising event. I mean, it's a slap in the face to the people that live along the border. You know, there was a case I was having lunch with one of the sheriffs from Zavala County, and he was telling me how there was a child that had was in a baseball game and got hit in the head. And he was supposed to get airlifted to San Antonio for care, but there were no resources because everything was put towards the migrants.
We just had yesterday, Congressman, we were showing our viewers ambulances had to take 10 Nicaraguans who had been in a car accident on that side. They were able to cross the river, but then, of course, Border Patrol had to jump into action.
This is what an America Last agenda looks like. Everyday Americans are put last. We don't feel safe. We don't feel secure. Our children are going into lockdown. We just started up school a couple months ago. A lot of my schools are going into lockdown on a regular basis. This is not normal. There's nothing normal about this. Biden and the House Democrats have failed us. House Republicans have a plan. Our commitment to America, part of that is to secure the southern border.
How will Republicans, even if you take the House, and that's the only branch of government you have, how will you make a difference? The cartels, Congressman, seem to have absolute control of this border here.
Yeah, no, right now the cartels have taken a $500 million smuggling industry in 2018 to a $13 billion industry. We have to gain control of our country again. House Republicans can do that with the power of the purse. I sit on the Appropriations Committee. It's time for House Republicans to lead and hold this administration accountable. The number one thing that we need from the administration is just to enforce the laws that are already on the books.
Congressman, we've been reporting on a TikTok video verified by Texas DPS advertising for a driver to drive from McAllen to Houston, $70,000. Cartels taken to social media.
Griff, what I'm seeing is the cartels are contracting it out to gangs and organized criminals, and those gangs are subcontracting it out to everyday people. So that TikTok video may have been $70,000 advertisement, but the cartel may be giving them $150 in order to do that. Why? Because if something goes down, you're seeing everyday people get impacted. I asked the sheriff the other day, I was like, what does a smuggler look like? And he goes, Tony, it's everyday people now. He goes, just in the past month, they caught 5 National Guardsmen that were caught smuggling as well.
Wow. Not getting any better here. Congressman Tony Gonzalez is going to be also meeting with some business people and I believe a family member, a grieving parent from fentanyl. Congressman, good luck. Thank you for being here. We'll send it back to you. Alicia?
Griff Jenkins in Eagle Pass, Texas. Thanks, Griff.
President Biden's comments regarding Russian President Vladimir Putin's possible use of nuclear weapons is raising new concerns about the war in Ukraine. The president warned on Thursday that he takes Putin's threats seriously and that the world is closer to Armageddon. This as a counteroffensive by Ukrainian forces has Russia losing ground and its military on the run, as Charlie mentioned. Christina Ruffini has the very latest from the White House. Christina, good morning.
Good morning, Dana. Well, President Biden didn't respond to our shouted questions about those remarks yesterday as he boarded Marine One, but that same language is now being used by the Ukrainian president, who said in an interview he believes Russian officials are laying the groundwork with the Russian public for a potential possible future use of nuclear weapons.
I think that it's dangerous even to speak about it.
In an interview with the BBC, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said he doesn't know if Russia will use nuclear weapons, but he and President Biden agree on the consequences.
I agree it is an Armageddon. It is the risk for the whole planet.
That word first uttered this week by President Biden at a closed-door Democratic fundraiser in New York, where he said, quote, "I don't think there's any such thing as the ability to easily use a tactical nuclear weapon and not end up with Armageddon," the risk of which, he added, the world hasn't faced since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Russia has an estimated 1,000 to 2,000 short-range nuclear weapons at storage sites around the country, including one close to the Ukrainian border. They could be launched from an aircraft, from the sea, or from the ground by a nuclear artillery shell. Here's one being tested by the U.S. Army in the 1950s.
This would be a serious mistake by Putin, but he needs to know that in advance so we can stop it from happening in the first place.
Congressman Mike McCall is the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
If we see any indication from the intelligence community that he is taking steps forward to launch a nuclear threat into Ukraine, I think we need to show that to the world.
The White House says President Biden's comments were not prompted by any specific evidence. A White House official tells us just a growing concern about Putin's rhetoric, which that individual called, quote, reckless and irresponsible. Now, in that same interview, President Zelenskyy was asked if Ukraine wins the war, does he think Putin survives? After pausing for a second, he said, quote, I don't care. Dana?
I'll take it. Thank you, Christina.
Tonight, CBS News has confirmed the Department of Justice believes that former President Donald Trump might still possess classified documents that he removed from the White House during his final days in office. CBS's Scott MacFarlane joins us from Washington. Scott, good evening. What can you tell us?
John, nearly 2 months to the day after the FBI seized those records from Mar-a-Lago, there is still concern documents are missing. That's according to an official familiar with the investigation. The Department of Justice in court filing says nearly 50 folders marked classified were empty, and the National Archives has notified Congress it still hasn't received records that should have been returned by the Trump administration when the former president left office. All of this raises the stakes for the ongoing legal dispute between the Trump team and the Department of Justice, the next battle of which is set for next week at the U.S. Supreme Court, which Trump has asked to intervene to block agents from reviewing some of those seized records. The Department of Justice response to the High Court is due Tuesday, John.
Scott MacFarlane in Washington.
Well, now to the war in Ukraine, with Russia saying a truck bomb caused the partial bridge collapse. ABC's Britt Clennett is on the ground in Ukraine with the latest. Good morning to you, Britt.
Good morning, Eva. Yeah, Ukraine hasn't directly claimed responsibility for the attack, but an advisor to President Zelenskyy called it a beginning, saying everything illegal must be destroyed.
This morning, a massive explosion crippling Russia's only bridge to annexed Crimea. Videos circulating online showing parts of it engulfed in flames. The bridge, a critical supply line for Russian troops. Russian authorities saying a truck bomb caused 7 railway cars to catch fire and caused part of the bridge to collapse. And overnight, Russian missile strikes in Kharkiv, sending plumes of smoke into the air. Rescuers frantically searching through rubble for survivors. The blast coming as Ukraine breaks through Russian lines in the south and east. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy claiming 300 square miles of Russian-occupied territory have been retaken this week alone. Grim discoveries in those liberated towns. Mass burial sites, hundreds of graves. Police saying one site containing nearly 200 bodies, including children. And as Russia's losses mount, the Kremlin stepping up aerial attacks on civilians. This satellite image showing the attacks on the city of Zaporizhia, less than 50 miles from Europe's largest nuclear power plant, which also came under shelling overnight, depowering the plant. The UN's nuclear watchdog in Kyiv this week ahead of talks with Moscow to try to set up a security zone around the Russian-controlled plant.
We are continuing saying what needs to be done, which is basically avoid a nuclear accident at the plant, which is still a very, very clear possibility.
And as nuclear fears escalate, President Biden warning of the risk of nuclear war. At a New York City fundraiser, the president saying, quote, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." The White House walking back on those remarks, later clarifying, saying there's no evidence Russian President Vladimir Putin is planning to use nuclear weapons imminently. And this morning, Moscow saying they're investigating that Crimea bridge explosion. One Russian senator saying there should be an adequate and possibly asymmetric response to the attack. Eva?
Britt Clement for us there. Thank
I'm Rachel Campos-Duffy in for Laura Ingram, and this is a special edition of the Ingram Angle live from New York City tonight. Remember when they told us about Joe Biden?
Joe Biden is probably the most experienced foreign policy expert since George H.W. Bush.
Biden is doing everything that he can to reassure the world that American global leadership is coming back.
He's thinking about global leadership, about how to keep everybody safe.
Not so much. There was the botched Afghanistan pullout, caving to China on every whim, and now, of course, the dangerous, never-ending war in Ukraine. Biden has turned our country into a doormat for China and into Ukraine's bottomless piggy bank. And now it's all escalating. Biden warning that under his watch, we're heading towards a nuclear Armageddon, saying at a fundraiser, quote, "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." And that's what we've got. A guy I know fairly well, he said of Putin. He's not joking when he talks about potential use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons. So what breaking new intel did the administration receive that would lead us to believe Armageddon was imminent?
Do you have new intel that caused the president to ratchet up the level of concern?
No, the president was speaking about concerns about Putin's threats to use nuclear weapons, just as he did at the UN General Assembly. And we have done over the past few weeks, you have heard us say this over and over again. You've heard it from the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, how seriously we are taking this. And that's what the president was speaking to.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.